Movie notes on Concussion, 2015 film, 18 October 2024 viewing. So just finished filming this video now, Friday, 18 October 2024, after viewing it. Just finished viewing it today, Friday, 18 October 2024 as well. I'm Tanis Coralee Leonhardi, she, her, hers of Seattle. And I'm going to go through my movie notes. My description for this viewing, I have seen this before today. So this is a biographical film about a man named Bennet Omalu investigating players of American football, including at the National Football League level, specifically in regards to potential brain trauma caused by collisions occurring in the course of play. And course of play here could mean scrimmage, it could mean practice, it could mean big deal NFL games. Right, this is based on real events, and something and it's kind of where science meets physiology, so like in the sense of like it's the realm of the science of physiology and medicine in kinesthesiology. Like physiology is how the body works, and then kinesthesiology is like how the body moves or something like that. And something like that, okay. And so it's essentially a bit about the path of figuring out what causes certain, like what could be causing certain symptoms in these American football players, and then actually looking at actual people, actual brains, like is there evidence for this? But then at every stage, you know, there's kind of like the basic kind of obstacles in just kind of understanding what's going on and defining what's going on, and then trying to study what's going on. Okay, so in that sense, it's a good, and then there, depending on what one's researching in science and what the research area is, it can, well, if it's, you know, it might threaten a certain industry, like in this case, like American football, all right, then people might not want to talk about it. It might try and just be like, can we push it under the rug? Can we silence it and stuff like that? And so I was like thinking about that a bit. And like even once people, you know, knew this happened and stuff, and this brain trauma, you know, the movie, it comes full circle in the sense of people still play. All right. So my takeaway was like, you know, it was the end credits with like less than 2 minutes of the movie left. And so I'm going to start with what I wrote down at the end, because I watched it all the way through, including the end credits. And is this movie like the warning label on a liquor bottle? So essentially, like, what's the long-term legacy of this? Especially if, like, let's say this guy or another person or whatever, I'm not familiar with all of the research in this area. Let's say you won a Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine, right? That category. Okay, what comes of it? Is essentially the end of it all, like, there's a prize awarded, and the American football goes, we don't care. We like our sport. We want to keep our sport. So then, okay, so then things don't really change. Then what happens? It's a warning label, right? You can think of, currently there's this. I think there's a book too. I think I've seen the book at the thrift store at some point in time. But then, like, it would add to the number of warning labels, so to speak. And so essentially, if a person goes, you know, and gets a liquor bottle on the bottle, per law, it's, you know, do not drink if you're pregnant or nursing or whatever it is, right? It may cause birth defects or harm to the unborn child or whatever, or the infant, right, in the case of nursing. So essentially, it becomes a warning label, right? That would be my guess, right? You know, kind of for the current American football industry, as to something it could be, right? This movie, but then also like just it's a bit of, okay, now that people know it allows them to make a decision. All right, do they want to play this sport or do they want to play a different sport? And so something other sports this could occur in. So I did, when I watched this closer to when it came out, I did look into the research a little bit, and I think the other one that they brought this up with, where this was kind of unknown in terms of like brain damage occurred in the sport and possibly it's related to collision, was boxing was a big one. Punches to the head. Yeah, especially if you're trying to knock the person out, it can cause some serious damage. So that was kind of American football and boxing. And so something I thought of back then, and then I was like, I should think about it now and see if I can I cut the list down? Do I reach the same conclusions as I did back then? As what are other sports this could be true for as well? So I came up with two. One, and this one I think is potentially pretty obvious. Was it? Okay. There's two, really. I guess kind of three, but two I'm emphasizing. So could also include swimming. Head damage from diving in the pool. Yes. So essentially in swimming, the impact on one's head when one dives in the pool is so severe that they actually have to put their arms in a protective position to minimize the damage to one's head when they dive in the pool. And certain people, like in like diving, so like platform in, so it's another one that's related, but I think that one is kind of well known that people get concussions in that sport. So I was like trying to think of ones where it's like lesser known. So I'll throw, diving is in there and auxiliary, but swimming is like perhaps like the lesser known, right? My arms are only so thick, I can't protect my whole head when I dive in. All right, so swimming is one that could cause brain damage, like in a similar vein, especially if the person's really, you know, forceful and really just gets off the block quick and stuff, right? And that corresponds to a greater force of impact, more potential brain damage, right? And it's pretty well known that people can get concussions just entering if they're doing like, even, so I was in high school swimming dive, and there was like, you know, the diver on the 1 meter springboard, so, you know, like barely above 3 feet off the water, and if they entered and their arms weren't perfectly aligned to protect their head when they hit the water, they could get a concussion. And that did happen with at least one of the divers, right? So at the concussion level, yes, and that's pretty well known for aquatic sports, where one has to dive into the water, has impact between the front, right, of the head and the water, which would be pool swimming, not necessarily artistic swimming, like they do have to dive in, but it's not like with pool swimming where it's about generating as much force and as much like blunt force trauma with the water surface as possible, right? Yeah. It's got that really kind of over the top kind of toxic energy that kind of comes with like collisions, at least in my lifetime, from a lot of the like dominating men in pool swimming. Not all, but especially in the American community, male American swimmer community. Another one for the aquatic sports, and this is one where there's it is already well known, cliff jumping causes knee damage when the person enters the water. Yes. That's a very well-known I mean, I lived in Hawaii and stuff, so like maybe people who haven't lived in communities where it's easy, relatively easy to go cliff jumping, they might not know that, but that one causes damage too, right? So, and then the other one I came up with was soccer from headbutting the ball. Yeah, those balls come in hard and fast. I would imagine and they're not wearing helmets, so the damage from soccer specifically, I would actually reckon might actually be more than American football, depending on the ball and the angle and the velocity and stuff like that. So yeah, those are two that I came up with: pool swimming and soccer. And then also add with cliff jumping / diving might be the best proof of his work is right, kind of like from a different sports perspective. I've even known, in the like super basic impact kind of thing, I've even known people in their 20s who have noted that the activity, so like cliff jumping, is hard on their knees. Perhaps they are the tuned in ones. Like if some people take a certain medication or are just kind of tuned out and they just like dive into the pool and they're like, oh, nothing's wrong. Like maybe that kind of ditzy mental state, right, is part of the brain image. I don't know. So there we go. And I was also thinking with it, I was like, okay, it's like, what are, like, I have with my Cristiano and we get him safe, we get him out of a forward position, put him in midfield. Maybe he, you know, veers towards defender if he really doesn't want to do headbutting or something like that, but starts off in midfield because he does like, you know, the opportunity to score. So this is my Cristiano with an H. And we have our one baby girl 1, that we named Nightingale. And we don't necessarily want her in sports that, you know, this kind of thing could happen with the brain trauma, so we make sure she gets to spend time with her grandparents, like a lot of time with grandparents. And so like Nightingale visits my parents, her grandparents, because my Cristiano with a H, both of his parents are deceased, and they might have deceased before I was even born, if I'm recalling correctly. So she'd only have one set of grandparents, my parents. So Nightingale visits my parents, her grandparents, where they live in Ireland. So she's there. She throws a temper tantrum, like me, her mom, and my dad, her grandpa, consoles her through a closed wooden door. So she's in a room with a closed wooden door, and dad, maybe he even gets down on his knees and is like talking to her through the door, and he consoles her. And then perhaps she comes to love the house so much, like where my mom and dad live in Ireland. Perhaps she comes to love the house so much she decides to settle down in Ireland. What? Grandparents and grandbaby get to live near each other? Okay, and then this is might be random, but I hope it's not an after effect. I hope I got out of swimming early enough. I hope I got out of soccer enough that this isn't concussion thinking, but it's just the real me. Somewhere in the sequence of the Nightingale and Ireland sequence, somewhere in the sequence, do I buy television network TNT? Do I buy it before the sequence? Yeah, do I, if I get a bunch of money, make a bunch of money and stuff, and I can buy a television network, go for TNT. I love TNT, or I at least loved it growing up. Right? This is the one with the network line with Scarlett Johansson in charge. Like, do I put Scarlett Johansson in charge of it? And then there's also the nationwide theater line. Do I try to make the timing like fancy footwork, where it's like, buy it in she's really young, or we're about to get pregnant, or something around that window, or maybe I get it really far in advance, but like try to align it so like she could go to the theater when she's like not an infant, but like, you know, like, and then like does she and like, you know, does the theater line incorporate like dances like in the movie Pride and Prejudice, like old English dances? And so then like she can go and dance with the most beautiful, my Nightingale, our Nightingale, my Cristiano and my Nightingale. Can we take her, and she goes and she dances with the most beautiful woman in the room, Ms. Scarlett Johansson, you know, do the theaters incorporated dancing, traditional European dance, or for the original peoples and those of us descended from the original peoples who want to continue on our traditions, right? So yeah, but that was like, for me that's logical progression, but like I don't know if that's true for everybody. So there we go. There's my movie notes on Concussion, 2015 film, 18 October 2024. Viewing from me to you. I'm Tanis Coralee Leonhardi, she, her, hers, Seattle.